I waited for Xiaomo for 4 months, only to have him bring back a concubine. On the day we married, he vowed, "For this lifetime, there will be only you, and I will never betray you." But now he says, Sheer has no one to rely on, just take pity on her. For the past 3 years, I've used my dowry to buy him an official position, and to pay for his mother's medical treatment. I served by her side day and night, and everyone praised me for being a virtuous and capable wife. Now, I've finally woken up. What do I need to be virtuous and gentle for? What do I need to be poised and manage the household for? I only want the one who wronged me to pay the price they deserve. Big sister, it is all my fault. Please don't blame the master. Ji Wangxi was kneeling before me, wearing a thin camise, whimpering delicately, crying so beautifully like pear blossoms in the rain. But I only felt a chill. As she spoke, she made a move to kowtow to me. The master saw that I had nowhere to go while he was providing disaster relief, and that is why he took me in. If not for him, I, Sheer, would have been sold on the road. I only beg you, big sister, to be kind and give me a place to stay. It would have been better if she hadn't said that. Now that she said it, the fury in my heart grew even stronger. During the 4 months that Xiaomo was away from the capital on assignment, providing disaster relief in Guan City, I was here in this house, day after day, nursing his mother back to health from her sick bed. And for what? Looking at this delicate and charming face before me, I felt like a complete and utter joke. Seeing her sorrowful and desolate appearance, I smiled coldly and said, "All right then." Ji Wangxi immediately stopped crying. She joyfully raised her teary eyes. "Sister, does this mean you are willing to accept Sheer?" I slowly and deliberately began to speak. "Let me ask you, if I were to find you a place, but not the Shao Manor, would you be willing?" Without waiting for her to react, I continued. "The cloth workshop outside the city is in need of a female dyer. Although the work is a bit hard, the benefit is that it will allow you to support yourself with your own labor. How about it?" The joyful surprise on her face vanished, replaced by a troubled expression. This, Ji Wangxi uneasily glanced towards the doorway out of the corner of her eye, as if waiting for some figure who could back her up to appear. My gaze was scrutinizing. "So you are unwilling then?" Ji Wangxi hastily lowered her head. "Sheer is clumsy. I am afraid I can't do this kind of work." Her voice took on a sobbing tone again as she said, "Sister, please have pity on me. I lost my parents when I was young, and only Lord Shao still treats me as a pitiful soul. In the future, I will serve tea and water to you and the Lord, and will never compete with you for his favor." That pitiful and delicate tone of voice appeared again. I sneered, asking her bluntly, "You just said you were clumsy, and now you say you'll serve me tea and water. What? Do your hands and feet stop being clumsy once you are in the Shao Manor?" I took a step forward, continuing to close in on her tottering body. "I see you are not clumsy. You are utterly shameless. You clearly had other options, yet you'd rather be subservient in this self-proclaimed lap of luxury." Ji Wangxi jerked her head up, tears still clinging to her eyelashes, and retorted urgently, "It is not like that." I paid her no mind, and instead bluntly threw out 2 questions. "Let me ask you, before Xiaomo brought you to the Shao Manor, did he clearly tell you that he already had a legal wife at home? Did he tell you that he once swore an oath never to take a concubine in this life?" Ji Wangxi nodded through her tears. "On the way here, Lord Shao already told Sheer everything about his family. I was the one who clung to him." "Big sister, if you must blame someone, then blame me, boo-hoo." I was so furious that I laughed instead, my tone even calming down a little. "Fine then, I'll grant you your wish." With that said, I raised my hand and slapped her. "You knew perfectly well he already had a wife, yet you insisted on butting in. What are your intentions?" The slap landed. A red mark instantly appeared on Ji Wangxi's fair face. She was too stunned to speak, even forgetting to cry. The room fell silent, with only the sound of her gasping. Just then, Xiaomo rushed in frantically from outside the door. He pulled up Ji Wangxi, who had fallen and was sitting on the ground covering her face in a daze, and when he looked up at me, he was a bit displeased. Calm down a bit. Back then, one Ching from Xiaomo was enough to make me willingly give everything for him. At that time, Xiaomo's family had fallen on hard times, and he was unable to realize his talents and ambitions. Me family ran a cloth shop, and although we weren't a wealthy family, my father still gave me a generous dowry on my wedding day. He said that since Xiaomo and I had known each other for a long time, if we supported each other in the future, our lives would surely get better and better. But I didn't know back then that the meaning of mutual support lies in the word mutual. I couldn't bear to see Xiaomo so depressed and unfulfilled, so I sold off most of my dowry jewelry to buy him an official position. Unexpectedly, not long after, his mother fell critically ill. Without the slightest hesitation, I took out the rest of my dowry and hired the best doctor in the capital. Everything, just so he could be free of distractions and be an official with a peaceful mind. For countless nights, Xiaomo would speak to me with words as sweet as honey. Ching, since you treat me so well, I swear I'll be disciplined and diligent, and in the future, I'll never let you be wronged in the slightest. He said it, and I believed it. But now when he calls me Ching, I just feel disgusted. Ji Wangxi looked as if she had finally found a backer. She lay in Xiaomo's embrace, sobbing quietly. Young Master Xiao, it is all Xier's fault. Xier will just leave now. Xiaomo shielded her behind him and looked at me, saying, Ching, did you know? I was the one who rescued her on the street. Xiaomo frowned and added, she really is a poor soul. Both her parents are dead, and her own brother was actually going to sell her to a brothel. Can't you be a little kinder to her? I didn't say anything, just let out a cold snort. He was clearly just taken by her looks, yet he makes it sound so nice. Seeing my look of cold disdain, Xiaomo sighed helplessly and said, as for what to do with her, we can discuss it later. For now, let's just settle her in the East Wing. But you mustn't hit her again. Discuss? Discuss when I've cooled down so you can go ahead and take Ji Wangxi as your concubine? Overwhelming rage churned within me. I gave a sharp, cold laugh, and immediately raised my hand. I raised my hand, the force a bit heavier than just now. This time, the slap landed squarely on Xiaomo's face. Just one slap wasn't enough to vent my anger. Without hesitation, I swung again with a backhand. 2 crisp slapping sounds rang out in succession. This time, both Xiaomo and Ji Wangxi were stunned. Ji Wangxi no longer had that delicate coy look. Now her face only showed astonishment. What are you doing? Xiaomo snapped out of his shock and shouted at me in a towering rage. Are you crazy? The corners of my lips curled into a cold arc. I am crazy. I must have been crazy to believe your bullshit about never taking a concubine in this life, and never letting me suffer even the slightest grievance. I used my dowry to pave the way for you. I took care of your mother every single day. And you do something so beastly? Xiaomo. Oh, Xiaomo, are you taking me for an idiot? Perhaps because I'd hit a nerve. A barely perceptible trace of guilt flickered in Xiaomo's eyes, but his anger from me causing him to lose face hadn't subsided yet, so he could only stand there stiffly, frowning in silence. During the stalemate, a shrill voice rang out. What is all this ruckus? What is going on? Soon! Xiaomo's mother, Madame Wang, burst in a flurry, with several servants trailing behind her. Just now, the servants were so scared that before she finished speaking, her eyes caught the faint finger marks on her son's face, and she immediately gasped. But she quickly composed herself, putting on a gentle expression and looking at me with a smile. My dear child, calm down first. It is Moore's fault. I'll talk to him right now. Then, she raised her hand and gave Xiaomo a light smack on the shoulder. Look at you. How could you just casually bring someone home from outside? What is this supposed to mean, with things being so unclear? After saying this, she reached for my hand again. Chinger. Moore was just confused. Don't stoop to his level. Whatever it is, you two as husband and wife should talk it over properly. Don't be impulsive. Watching Madame Wang's theatrical questioning, my heart had already turned to ashes. It seemed like a scolding, but was actually a gross understatement, with every sentence making excuses for him. I finally saw them for who they are. Aunts. Xiaomo and I were a harmonious husband and wife. This household was a picture of peaceful years. And Madame Wang also played the part of a kind and loving mother. Now that there were disagreements and disputes, with just a few casual words she covered up her own son's sins. So, what if I served her for 3 years? So, what if I found doctors to treat her illness? Just as I thought. From beginning to end, I was the only one who was an outsider. Of course, I bear some responsibility for this too. It was my usual good nature that provided a breeding ground for this family's shamelessness. I used all my strength to fling away the hand Madame Wang held out to me, with such force that it made her stagger. But I couldn't be bothered with her anymore, turning to look coldly at Xiaomo. Let's get a divorce. As soon as I said that, Xiaomo's face paled a little. He cried out in disbelief. My voice was as cold as ice. The dowry I brought was all used to advance your official career, and the rest was used to treat your mother's illness. If you have even a shred of humanity left, convert it all into silver and return it. After speaking, I added, word by word, return every last cent to me. Then, sign the divorce papers. From now on, we'll go our separate ways, and all ties between us will be severed. Seeing my resolute attitude, Madame Wang hurriedly tried to play the peacemaker again. No divorce. No divorce. This little slut from outside, just kick her out today, and that'll be the end of it. Hearing this, Shi Wangxi immediately tugged on his sleeve from behind Xiaomo and said, My lord. At this point, I no longer wanted to maintain any semblance of decency with them. Whatever fig leaf there was, they no longer deserved to have it, so I dropped all pretense and said mockingly, Mother-in-law, are you acting like this because you are afraid of losing a good daughter-in-law who works hard without complaint to serve you? Probably because she thought I had always been meek and easy to bully. Mrs. Wang didn't expect that I would actually disobey her. Her face flushed beet red, and she stammered before finally squeezing out, I continued to question back. What? Did I guess what was on your mind, mother-in-law? Aching! How could you speak to mother like that? Xiaomo frowned and interrupted me. Calm down first. All right. My gaze swept over Xiaomo's irritated and frustrated face, then over Shi Wangxi's cowering and hiding figure, and also Mrs. Wang's slightly flustered face. All their hypocrisy and countless schemes were laid bare before my eyes. My voice wasn't loud, but it clearly tore apart their pretense. If you don't agree to a divorce and return my dowry, I will report you to the authorities and accuse you of dereliction of duty for privately bringing a refugee woman into your residence. Enough, Shenqing. Xiaomo's roar echoed throughout the hall. How have you become so savage and unreasonable? Hearing this, Mrs. Wang also shrieked. Shenqing, you and Moer have been married for 3 years and are still childless. Moer brought back a woman for the sake of the Xiao family's bloodline. How can you be so jealous? 3 years. We've acted out the good show of a loving mother, a filial son, and a peaceful household for 3 years. Even though I did everything impeccably, in the end, all the blame is still mine. My body is perfectly healthy. As for why I am childless, you should probably ask that precious son of yours. Before the 3 of them could react, I continued with my heart-piercing words. Besides, even if I've been childless for 3 years, I saved your son's career, and I saved your life. I roared out loud. Has your conscience been eaten? The 3 of them looked at each other in dismay. After saying that, I couldn't bear to look at this filthy place for another second. Even one more look was disgusting. I turned and left resolutely, leaving one sentence behind. Xiaomo, I wish you and Shi Wangxi forever and ever together. Just stop ruining other people. From behind me came the hysterical shrieks of Wangxi. She is crazy. Shenqing has truly gone mad. Xiaomo adamantly refused the divorce. For several days in a row, he was like a lingering ghost I couldn't shake off, guarding my bedroom door every night. It was my fault, please open the door. If you hate me, you can hit me or curse me, anything is fine, just don't ignore me. I've already sent Shi Wangxi out of the manor. Really? Through the door, I listened and only found it laughable. From an in-house concubine to an outside mistress. I wonder how Shi Wangxi ever agreed to that. She must not know. This superficial comfort and prestige eats people alive. If it were 3 years ago, the me who only had eyes for him would have probably believed Xiaomo just like that. Back then, he had just started his official career, and whenever there were evening banquets and social engagements, I would always stay up until late at night, waiting for him to come back to serve him a bowl of hangover soup. Never had I thought the person I treated with all my heart was really worth my trust and consideration to this extent. Now this bastard, does he really think I am just throwing a tantrum? What a fool's dream. I kept my door shut and refused to see him, and Xiaomo also gradually lost his patience. That night, he seemed to have drunk too much, and came to my door again. The dull sound of pounding on the door came. "Shenqing, open the door," I replied in a cold voice. "If you are not here to deliver the divorce papers, then get lost." Outside the door, it was quiet for a moment. Then, he continued to ramble on drunkenly. "Have you ever thought about why on earth I brought Shi Wangxi back? Isn't it because she is docile and obedient in everything? And you all day long you just know how to put on that superior virtuous act. In your heart, have I always been that pathetic? Shenqing?" I remained silent. Arguing with him is a waste of time and breath. Since he won't sign the divorce papers, I'll find another way. 5 days later, I packed up all my belongings. Looking at this room that had trapped me for 3 years, all that remained in my heart was a bone-chilling cold. In the early morning, Xiaomo put on his official attire and prepared to leave. I stopped him in the corridor on his way out of the manor, and asked Xiaomo, "I'll ask you one last time, are you signing these divorce papers or not?" He got on the horse, looking at me with a complicated expression. "Zhangqing, don't let your imagination run wild anymore. I will not divorce you." I watched his back as he turned and left. The corners of my lips slowly curled into a sneer. "Xiaomo, this is the path you chose yourself." As the sound of horse hooves disappeared at the end of the long street, I took my things and left the Xiao mansion without looking back. Outside the gate, the weather was fine, the clouds were sparse and the breeze was light. It is a long-lost feeling of freedom. When I was young, my family never restrained me just because I was a girl. Always let me go and play freely. I've been used to seeing the vast blue sky since I was little. But after getting married, how did I so willingly trap myself in this place? If I had met a husband worthy of my trust, one couple for a lifetime, that would at least have counted as a life of peace and quiet. But Xiaomo, he is clearly not worth it. Leaving the Xiao mansion, the first thing I have to do is to gather the evidence of what was paid for by my dowry. I am very fortunate that when the Xiao mansion hired an accountant back then, I was the one who had a reliable person find the old gentleman. When I left, I put the Xiao mansion's secret ledgers into my sleeve. And what was left in the Xiao manor was the fake account book I stayed up for 3 nights to copy. Actually, I originally wanted this account book just to get back my embezzled dowry. My original intention was to calculate the dowry, and then find evidence that his secretly bringing back Shi Wangxi violated the official code of conduct, to find a way to accuse Xiaomo of the crime of malfeasance. But I never expected that hidden in this account book, there would be an unexpected discovery. The ink-black characters flickered under the lamplight. Looking at the lines of small characters, I couldn't help but be shocked. 3 years ago, when Xiaomo first entered officialdom, although he had a minor official position and a meager salary, he still possessed the integrity and ambition of a scholar. Later on, he eventually changed. Ever since attaching himself to the Prime Minister's faction, Xiaomo's path to promotion became much easier. In less than 3 years, he soared straight up, rising to the rank of senior 5th rank. But it wasn't just his path to promotion that changed. The Xiaomo from before, who discussed the people's livelihood and his ambitions with me under the moon, later on when I was worried and concerned about him, told me word for word, "Qing, you are just a woman. What could you possibly understand about matters of the court? Just look after our inner quarters, and that'll be enough." I never thought he would be so audacious, daring to tamper with the silver for purchasing grain and rice, and commit acts like embezzlement and bribery. alone under the candlelight. I laughed bleakly, unable to describe the feeling in my heart. That is right. I should have realized it on the day he brought Shi Wangxi back. A man who can so easily betray his own wife. How can one expect him to hold on to the ambitions of his youth? I closed the ledger, my fingertips trembling slightly, sleepless all night. The next day, I got dressed neatly early in the morning. I looked at myself in the mirror. Compared to 3 years ago, I had become much more haggard from the ordeal. I took a deep breath. This matter has huge implications. Reporting it directly to the authorities is, of course, out of the question. It might also alert the enemy, and I could be counter-accused by Xiao Mo and Mistress Wang. If I want to bring him down with this, I naturally have to find someone whose interests conflict with his. I thought about it all night. In the capital, the one who can rival the Prime Minister and has always been respected by the common people as fair and incorruptible, is none other than the censor, Song Siming. I had long heard that this man and the Prime Minister's faction were like fire and water. However, just knowing his name is far from enough. Showing up at his door rashly, I'd probably be taken for a madwoman. I have to find a way to meet him first. Pushing open the inn's door, I headed in the direction of the Shu Tea House. That place is a mixed bag of people, with a constant flow of traffic, but it is also the most well-informed place in the capital. Sometimes, just from the sharp tongue of a storyteller, you can learn most of the anecdotes in this capital. As long as I can find out Song Siming's whereabouts or destination, my chances of success will be much higher. On the way, I discovered that the Xiao Manor was actually posting missing person notices in the city. Looking at the face in the portrait that resembled mine, I laughed in spite of myself. Xiao Mo, your retribution. Let it begin from this moment. To gather information, you need to have enough patience. I've sat in this tin yu xuan for several days straight. Every day, a bowl of plain tea, a plate of candied sweets. The few waiters in the shop have all gotten familiar with me. Through idle chat, I carefully probed them for useful information. But after sitting quietly for a few days, most of what I heard was just mundane town gossip and trivial matters. Just when I was considering whether or not to change locations, I overheard whispers from the neighboring table. Don't go to the gambling dens on the east side these days. I heard the authorities are sending people to investigate. At this moment, the waiter smilingly served me some light tea and snacks. Miss, here for tea again today? I nodded slightly, and as if asking for gossip, I lowered my voice and asked him. They were talking about the gambling dens on the east side. Did something happen? Oh, I heard that this month Imperial Censor Lord Song will personally inspect the East Ward and clean up the gambling dens there. I finally got the good news I was waiting for. After hearing this news, I immediately went back and wrote down all the evidence I had on the petition. Afterwards, I found an inn in Dongfeng to stay at. After 10 hard days of waiting, I finally saw Song Siming's carriage. In the crowd, watching that carriage get closer and closer, my heart was beating extremely fast. When a bailiff dressed in an official uniform with a solemn expression got down. I know, this rare opportunity is right at this moment. Burning my boats, risking it all, at my most anxious moment. For an instant, I seemed to see myself from 3 years ago, standing before me, calling to me with a smile. Ching, go, don't forgive. The hatred from being deceived and betrayed reached its peak at this moment. So I suddenly rushed to the very front of the crowd and knelt down before this horse carriage. Your Excellency, I, a common woman, have a charge to make, with ironclad proof concerning the state and the people's livelihood, which I wish to present. I shouted with almost all the strength I had. The noisy crowd from just a moment ago was now dead silent. Many people looked at me as if I were a madwoman, but I could no longer pay any mind to that. A deep, commanding voice came from the carriage. Who is it that blocks the carriage, and for what reason? I am Shen Qing, wife of the Minister of Revenue, Xiao Mo, and the one I accuse is Xiao Mo himself. His crimes, I have written them all down on this petition. I held the petition in my hands high above my head. The person in the carriage pondered for a moment, murmuring, Xiao Mo. Almost as soon as the words were out, Song Siming lifted the carriage curtain and nodded to the officers below. "Take her back, watch over her well, and do not make things difficult for her." "Yes, sir," several officers responded. Then they said to me in a solemn voice, "Madam, please come with us." I followed them into the censorate. By the time Song Siming returned from his official duties, it was already evening. He flipped through the complaint in his hand and looked up at me with a serious expression, asking, "You are Xiaomo's official wife?" "Yes, Your Excellency." "Why would you report your own husband?" Song Siming's eyes showed surprise, and his gaze towards me was probing. My eyes reddened, and I answered truthfully, "Because I wish to have a peaceful divorce." In the 3 years since I married him, Xiaomo has misappropriated all of my dowry. Last month, he went on an inspection tour to Guancheng for disaster relief. But on the way, he brought back a refugee woman of unknown origin. After saying that, I shed a few tears. I worked hard and poured my heart and soul into managing the household. But to my surprise, as soon as he returned, he said he wanted to take a concubine. I continued sobbing. I was unwilling to accept it, but I still wanted an amicable separation, so I proposed a peaceful divorce. I didn't expect him to use his power to oppress me, resolutely refusing to sign the divorce papers and unwilling to return my dowry. I had no other choice but to look through the household's account books, hoping to report to the authorities to get my dowry back. But, unexpectedly, I discovered something suspicious. Although it was an act, my tears did contain a hint of genuine bitterness. All of his crimes are written in this complaint. After hearing this, Song Siming sighed softly. "I understand." He looked at me and said, "I will investigate this thoroughly. If what you say is true, I will help you with a state-enforced divorce." I lifted my teary eyes, both surprised and delighted. Then this humble woman's dowry. "The dowry belongs to you. Although he has already spent it according to the law, he must return it." The stone weighing on my heart finally fell, and I said gratefully, "Thank you, Your Lordship. Your act of upholding justice even against your own family has indeed helped me." Song Siming paused for a moment, then added, "However, this case is of great importance. During the investigation period, you temporarily cannot leave this place." "I am willing." I nodded and smiled. I was willing to wait. As long as Xiaomo could be punished, I didn't mind paying a price. The outcome did not fail my hopes. Song Siming's methods and the speed of his investigation far exceeded my expectations. As the sworn enemy of the Chancellor's faction, how could he let such a good opportunity go? Naturally, he wished he could dig 3 feet deep for evidence to catch them all in one fell swoop. In less than a month, I received news that the Xiao Manor was about to be investigated and dealt with. On this day, Song Siming came in person. "Madam Shen," he spoke, his voice steady and calm. "The Xiao Manor will be seized and sealed soon." A thread of relieved pleasure and reassurance slowly rose from the bottom of my heart. I had suffered through for so long. Wasn't it all for this very day? I looked up, my tone calm as I asked, "Sir, has it been cleared up?" Song Siming nodded. "Xiaomo's crimes of embezzling grain funds, bribing superiors, along with what you mentioned, the malfeasance of secretly bringing in refugees, have all been confirmed." "Then, what about this humble woman?" "You are the meritorious person who first reported this. Rest assured, I will petition His Majesty. I estimate that in a few days, a document of righteous separation will be issued to you, completely severing your marital status with Xiaomo." The 2 words, righteous separation, to me were too precious. So much so that I felt a daze of unreality. Before, I only hoped for a consensual divorce. I never thought there was the path of righteous separation to take. Once I get the document of righteous separation, it will mean that I have no further connection to the Xiao Manor. All of his Xiaomo's wrongdoings will also not implicate me. Song Siming looked at me and said, "This case has many implications. If there is a joint trial by the 3 judicial departments later, you will still need to appear and testify." I bowed slightly, smiled and said, "This humble woman understands." Afterward, I handed him the detailed list and vouchers for my dowry expenses. which I had prepared long ago. These are all the proofs of my dowry expenses. I must trouble you, sir, to hand them over to the government office to help me recover them. Song Siming took the thick stack of papers I handed him and agreed. Seeing him agree so readily, I felt a little embarrassed in my heart. All this time, I had actually troubled Song Siming to do so much. I said, somewhat bashfully, "Sorry to trouble you, my lord. I hope you won't laugh at me for being mercenary." Song Siming shook his head, his voice clear. "Taking back what is rightfully yours is not mercenary in the least. It is the way of heaven, to persevere until the clouds part and the moon is revealed." At this moment, I was holding the weighty deed of righteous severance in my hand, standing quietly outside the Shao Manor. Many people had gathered here to watch the spectacle, and I was hidden among the crowd, watching the once magnificent gate of the Shao Manor being sealed up by bailiffs with one white strip after another. Watching Madame Wang wailing and trying to block the bailiffs at the gate, only to be shoved back mercilessly. Watching Shi Wangxi kneeling on the ground, desperately clutching Xiaomo's lapel and demanding in a panic, "My husband, what is happening? You clearly promised to bring Shir back to live a good life. How did it turn out like this?" Watching Xiaomo, his face pale and his expression stunned, as he helplessly witnessed himself losing everything. Indeed, my judgment was correct. Not long after I left, he brought Shi Wangxi back again. Now that I think about it, he had probably already taken her as a concubine. Madame Wang sat on the ground, her venomous gaze sweeping over the surrounding crowd. A short while later, she saw me standing in a corner of the crowd. "Shen Qing!" She scrambled to her feet and shrieked, "More! That is Shen Qing!" Hearing this, Xiaomo finally raised his dazed eyes. My gaze met his. When our eyes met, I revealed a mocking smile. Madame Wang immediately lunged over, baring her teeth and claws, wanting to confront me, but was quickly stopped by the bailiffs beside her. "Shen Qing, you are the one who harmed us! You venomous-hearted madwoman! How dare you frame your own husband?" The crowd's gazes all turned towards me, but I didn't back down, instead walking towards them step by step. Xiaomo watched me get closer and closer, a sickly smile appearing on his face. He looked at me resentfully and asked, "You've harmed us to this extent. Are you satisfied now?" My gaze was calm and still. "I have never harmed you. The only thing that harmed you was your own insatiable greed. Xiaomo, take your mother and your beautiful concubine, and go enjoy your already rotten, decaying lives." After saying this, I turned and left amidst the sound of Madame Wang's filthy curses. Just as I was leaving, Xiaomo suddenly called out to me, "A Qing." He paused for a moment, and finally said, "Sorry." My footsteps didn't stop. I continued walking forward. This belated apology had already lost all meaning to me. Perhaps I should have realized it long ago. 3 years ago, when Xiaomo confided his frustrations to me, I should have realized if he truly had lofty ambitions, he should have earned his official position himself. Why should I be the one to pave his path to success? Behind me, after the officials thoroughly raided the Shao Manor, they took the devastated Xiaomo away to the imperial prison. "Young master, where are you taking the young master? Mar!" My son amidst these cries and shouts. I walked further and further away, on a small path by the marketplace. I got into the horse-drawn carriage I had prepared long ago. The carriage driver waved the whip in his hand and asked me in a clear voice, "Miss, where to?" I tightly clutched the bundle in my hands. Inside was a thick stack of banknotes I got back from my dowry. At this moment, that feeling of freedom from my youth, the familiar hustle and bustle of the marketplace, mixed with the slightly cool breeze from outside the window, all blew in together. In a very light, yet very joyful voice, I said, "Home."